Good morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, Texas time.
Wow.
Here. So I really, truly appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, let me get that. So I'm going to be speaking about working together to prevent suicide. And my screen is very sensitive. So my first name is Uchenna. My last name is Umeh. I am a medical doctor. I'm a pediatrician. I also have an MBA and I'm a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I do like to go by Dr. Lulu, AKA the momatrician, because I'm a mom and I'm a pediatrician, and that's a trademark. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I was commander in the U.S. Air Force. I was a lieutenant colonel. I'm a daughter of a Nigerian two-star general, so I am my father's daughter. I'm a best-selling author, 10-3. I'm also a TEDx speaker. I spoke at TEDx Alief, which is in Houston, on the 5th of September. I am a United Nations speaker. I'm a global Pan-African network, but actually it's nationalism, but I like network speaker. I'm also a youth suicide prevention activist. I like the word activist as opposed to advocate because I was born an activist and I have no apologies. My future job, which is not on here, I don't know why, is to become the United Nations speaker on youth suicide. That position does not exist, but I have the power to manifest what I speak, like my brothers have all alluded to this morning. So yes, there is power in owning what you believe in. So I'm going to not be able to see the chat for a minute because I'm kind of eliminating that part so it doesn't interrupt. So this talk, like any talk that I give, might be a trigger warning because I do speak on youth suicide. And I mean, that's about it. In the year 2000, I experienced my first suicide. It was a friend of mine. She was Nigerian. She was 33 years old. She was a doctor. She was a surgical resident. And I literally had a feeling about 2 weeks before the event happened to call her. I kept having a feeling to call her and call her and call her. And I couldn't. I didn't because I was 7 months pregnant with my middle son. And so I didn't call her. I never did. But then about 2 weeks later, obviously from the thought, I called her just to see how she was because she kept coming to my mind. And her niece told me, oh, my auntie blew her brains out 2 weeks ago, were her exact words. And she lived in New York at that time. And so I went into labor with my now 20-year-old son early. He was born at 7 months because of the news of a suicide. I never thought I would ever know someone who died by suicide. It was never a thought of mine. But then fast forward to 2008, I experienced a patient's suicide. My 15-year-old patient came to see me with his mother. His mom told me to check him because she believed in her heart that he was depressed and there's nothing else that could be except depression, because why would he be acting the way he was acting? He was a football quarterback, the American football quarterback, and he loved football, and all of a sudden he didn't want to play football anymore. There must be something wrong with him. He must be using drugs. But when I checked him, I did a PHQ-9 and it came back, he scored 23 out of 27. A PHQ-9 is a modified depression screening that we use here in the US to assess people's depression state. It's modified for children, so there are only 9 questions, but 2 of the questions at the bottom of that screen have 2 vital questions, and one of them says, have you in the last 1 year had suicidal thoughts? And the second one is, have you in the last 1 month had suicidal thoughts? And of course, both answers were yes for him. And when I told his mother that, his white mother said to me, and I quote, oh, just depression, that's it? Oh, you know what, he's gonna be fine. I was depressed and I was okay. His sister was depressed and she was okay. Everybody in my family had depression and they were okay. And he's going to be okay. That was in March of 2008. That was the last time I saw him, because on July 4th, 2008, which is July 4th, if you know this, is the American Independence Day. The family was having a barbecue. That's what they do on Independence Day here. And Dr. Luce will know this. And guess what? He came into the front yard in the front of his entire family. He put a double-barrel shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. So I say this to say what I'm wearing on my t-shirt is an original quote during my TEDx talk. A suicide attempt. I'm going to turn around. And I don't know if you can see this. is never a cry for attention. It is always a cry for help. When a child is suicidal, or when a child voices thoughts of suicide, it is never, oh, mom, notice me. It is never, oh, guess what? I have nothing else to do. I have no other, I'm lazy, or I just can't. As a pediatrician and as a child advocate, I take a suicide verbalization, any kind of suicidal behavior, ultimately seriously. And in 2018, I quit my job as what I call a penicillin pediatrician. I quit my job as a pediatrician in America to start speaking and writing, and most importantly, ask myself, why would a child want to kill themselves? Why would a child want to die by suicide? Following a visit to my office by a 7-year-old patient. He came in with his mother. His mother said he, a 7-year-old, had attempted to hang himself twice. So I do not take the subject of suicide lightly. I quit my job. Why? Because I came home that day and my baby son, so I have 3 sons. My baby son, I call him baby, but he's 16 and he's 5'10" and a half. But at that time he was 11. He said, Mom, you look like you've seen a ghost. I said, yes, I feel like I've seen a ghost. Because that 7-year-old boy shook me to the core. Why did he attempt to hang himself? His uncle, which is his mother's boyfriend at that time, said some very negative, demeaning words about his father, who was absent in his life. So please, I beg you, as a pediatrician, I do not take suicide lightly. I believe in my heart that if a child wants to kill themselves, yes, sometimes they don't recognize that that act is going to end up in death, but they do mean it. So please do not ever underestimate the power of the words, I want to kill myself. In Nigeria last year, we had a guy called Akachi. His suicide was publicized widely on the Nigerian social media. People tagged me, people were talking about it, but I went back and I looked at his story and I found out that before that, he was talking on suicide, that my life on social media, that my life is over. My mental health is on life support, end quote. My mental health is on life support were Akachi's words, end quote. And I could not finish reading the comments by other Nigerian youth like him. Every kind of vile comment you can imagine were put on his page following that suicide warning. Let me tell you something. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to kill myself, that is doing okay. That gentleman said, my mental health is on life support. And guess what? When he finally eventually ended up killing himself, the direct opposite, the same people who were saying, oh boy, what do you mean? Oh boy, how dare you say that? Oh boy, you cannot be serious. Oh boy, get out of here. Shut the fuck up. And I do use curse words. I'm 51 years young. I can use curse words because these are the words that were written on his Facebook page. Shut the fuck up. How dare you say that? What kind of problem can you have? Are you the only one that has problems? They were the same people that are now saying, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. We couldn't tell. We had no idea. Again, a suicide attempt is never a cry for attention. It is always a cry for connection. Write that down in your textbook. So my main objective today is to tell us why or how childhood trauma plays a role in child suicide as well as later life adult suicide, and how you, who is watching me today, how you can prevent it. Anyone who is in the chat, if you raise your hand, if you've ever heard this quote, it takes a village to raise a child. It's a Yoruba adage. It takes a village to raise a child. Comment in the chat if you've ever seen this quote, or better still, if you've never seen this quote. I'll be worried about you. But here's my counter quote. My counter quote is, it takes a village to save a child. This is Dr. Lulu's original quote. It takes a village to save a child. It is all of us together that is going to take to save a child. Nigerian children do die by suicide. Recently, we had a 10-year-old boy in Benue State. I know this because, again, this is the work that I've chosen to do. A 10-year-old boy in Benue State killed himself one day after his mom, quote unquote, cursed him out, is my best way to describe that. Nigerian parents feel like it is their right to abuse and yab and curse out and beat up their kids because they can. Why do I know this? I was born and raised in Nigeria. It is my birthright. I have seen where children in Nigeria have been belittled to feel like they are nothing, close to scum of the earth. A child that you went to God and asked and prayed to God to give you a child. Then you get the child, and then what do you do with the child? How are you going to answer to God about the child that he gave to you to watch over, to take care of? And yes, when I say you, I mean you as a village, not just the parents, because there's always somebody in the house who can say something. And if you look at the chat today, you can see the way I feel about Nigerian parenting. I can say this for those at the back because I am a Nigerian parent and I dare to not raise my kids the way Nigerian parents in general raise their kids. I love the fact that the brother Dairo said something about his kids are allowed to talk. My children, all my 3 sons, one is 22, one is 20, and the baby is 16. They will call me out. Mom, nope, I saw you do this the other day. Why did you do it this way? I am raising my boys to be feminists. Feminists are people who believe that women are equal to men. I can say this in a Nigerian forum, and I know most ignorant Nigerians don't know the meaning of feminists. My boys are feminists. My boys are humanists. They see other people as humans first. So I've told you who I am. What do you see in this picture? You see a fly girl. I am proud of myself. I wear my Nigerian colors with pride. I wear my beautiful Nigerian colors with pride. That is me in my backyard feeling full of myself because I can. And that is going back to what the other brother was saying. I wrote his name here. Brother Dennis was saying how you must control your own thoughts. You must tell yourself you're good enough. You must tell yourself you're great enough. And I think Brother Dairo touched on that also. You must listen to what you say to yourself. If you're not careful, you will talk yourself to death. And that is actually a true statement. You will talk yourself to death. So I've told you who I am, and I've told you what you see in this picture. But what do you not see? What you don't see in this picture is a 7-year-old who was bullied nearly every day on the elementary school bus in Nigeria. I know you don't see the 9-year-old who was sexually assaulted by a trusted adult neighbor. In those days, we had a guy, and I'm going to say his name is Christopher. All of us children liked him. He made us trust him, and that is usually what happens. The usual reason is adults, promiscuous adults, abusive adults, sexually exploitative adults cause the children around them to trust them. And when the child trusts you, what do? You break that trust by sexually assaulting them. Shame on you. I have no problem saying shame on you if you ever take advantage of a child. Shame on you, because I've heard the news that has come out of every home in America, every home in Australia, every home in the UK, every home in Africa, every home across the world since the lockdown. There has been an increase in sexual molestation of children. Shame on you if you watch and say nothing. Shame on you if you participate in it. I told you that this talk was going to trigger some strong emotions. I cannot be a voice for children and talk soft. So if you don't want to watch me, I have no problem you leaving right now. But shame on you if you ever stand by and watch a child being sexually molested and say nothing. What you don't see is a 13-year-old who was bullied by her high school seniors while I was in boarding school in Nigeria. Why? Because they could. What you don't see is a 19-year-old who was raped as a medical student during my first year. Why? Because I went into somebody's room to use the restroom. I went into the hostel. There was something going on there. And for years, it took me a long time to stop blaming myself for being raped. I want you to see the picture that I'm painting. I can talk about myself because it is my story. You can't take it from me. I blame myself for a long time because in Nigeria and in other countries, when a woman is raped, the first question is, what was she wearing? The second question is, what did she do to deserve it? Hell no. It took a long time of self-coaching to unlearn what I learned, that believing that I was the one that I deserve to be raped. I want you to start today, if you have been a victim of sexual assault, to start today to stop ever thinking that it was your fault. Because the person that raped you, nobody ever talks about the fact that men rape women or women rape men. Rather is, oh, a girl was raped, a child was raped, a woman was raped. Nobody talks about the fact that a man is the one that violated her. And so men go ahead and continue to do what they're doing. So guess what? Like I said at the beginning, my talks are not sugar-coated. If you never heard Dr. Lulu talk before, you've heard me now. There's a reason why I'm a United Nations speaker. I do not mince my words. You do not see the 26-year-old pediatric resident. When I came to Washington, D.C. as a pediatric resident, all my life I wanted to go to D.C. I wanted to go to Howard, HU in the house. I have no apologies for going to Howard University. But when I first came to America, I was an alien. I didn't know anybody. I was the only person that I knew, no relatives. You don't see that 26-year-old in that picture. I was alone. I was lonely. I was isolated. I'm Black in America. You don't see that child in there. You don't see her there. And there's something called immigration suicide. I didn't know that. Immigrants have a very, very high rate of suicide for everything that you know that is going on right now. You don't see a 33-year-old wife and mother and victim of near daily domestic abuse from my ex-husband. You don't see her in that picture. You don't see the woman who took a chance and married a man that she thought she loved and then had 3 sons for him, a Nigerian man, and look at what happened on a daily basis. You don't see the woman that one day she said, I'm going to kill him because I know how to kill, because I'm a doctor. You don't see the homicidal woman in that picture. You do not see the 40-year-old divorcee of a single mother of 3 boys in that picture. You don't see the woman who was actively suicidal in that picture. Why? Because I dared to file for divorce, and I dared to be a Nigerian, and I dared to be a woman, and nobody ever asked me, how are you doing? Rather, they asked me, what could he have done? Because that is the Nigerian way to condemn everything that women and children do. Well, guess what? I'm here today, thriving. I'm surviving and thriving as a woman who had all of that trauma in my past. You don't see the 45-year-old actively suicidal lieutenant colonel and commander in the U.S. Air Force. You don't see her in that picture. I was driving down the highway one day with my rooftop of my convertible down. I had no seatbelt on. I was going 85 to 95 miles an hour. I was looking for an opening on the road to kill myself and make sure it looked like an accident. You don't see her in that picture. I have absolutely no apologies telling you my story. That is her story. My her story. H-E-R. History, no. Her story, yes. That is mine. You don't see me today at 51. I'm a mother of 3 Black boys in America. And I live in a daily fear of police brutality because of racism against my children. If you don't know about that, read my 3rd book. It's called How to Teach Your Children About Racism. And I'll show you that in a minute. You don't see any of that because looks can be deceiving. That is me representing my dual citizenship with pride because I can. You cannot take it from me. I am a Nigerian. I am also an American. And I'm a veteran, proudly so. All of those things you see in this picture, you don't, because looks can be deceiving. You don't see me being a Black woman. You don't see me being a doctor. Rather, what you see is me being a Black woman, me being a doctor, me being an immigrant, me being a veteran, me being a divorcee, me having been a single mother, me remarried, me owning the fact that I am proudly married to another woman today. Why? Because that is who gave me love. Why? Because I have a son who is LGBT, and I'm very proud of the fact that I breastfed him for 23 months and he's doing very, very, very well. Because in Nigeria, we put labels and we throw the Bible and we toss things at you. Why? To find a reason to separate us. While God created the earth, and on the seventh day, he looked at the work that he did and he said to himself, this is good. God himself said, this is good. We are the ones that find the ungoodness in each other. We are the ones that find verses in the Bible to condemn each other. When Jesus Christ, who was 100% man and 100% God, he was writing on the ground. He said, let me see the first person who has not committed a sin to throw the first stone at the woman. He did not call her a prostitute. He called her a woman. He said, when he looked up, he said, has no one stayed behind to condemn you? Well, neither will I. This is what human beings do. We find the negative in each other, brothers and sisters. I used to teach Bible study when I was a younger version of me. I was born and raised Catholic, but I know my children have seen so much racism in the Catholic Church. One day I said to God, you know what? It's only me and you today. I don't want to deal with church anymore because the church has not shown me that the church is receptive of me as a person. My own son, when he was 7, tried to show shake each other and show the sign of peace to each other. And the white man next to my son refused to shake my son's hand. And my son said, Mom, why did he do that? In the church. So damn you if you want to damn me because I'm human and I'm Black and I'm in the church. You have condemned yourself first. So yes, looks can be very, very deceiving. We must start the conversation. Everybody's been talking about that. We must start the conversation. We must talk. It's enough of the silence already. I don't answer to that. We must talk about the trauma in our most vulnerable of the population. This is a child that the parents asked God to give to them. And the story is that the child saw food on the table that was kept for his father and ate some of the food. I wonder why a child will see food on the table and eat it. I wonder if maybe that child was full. That's why the child ate the food on the table. I wonder whether that child had eaten to their fill and then saw the food on the table and ate it. And what's worse is that this particular child, you can see that this is not the first time that this happened to this child. Look at the scars on this child's body. This child is probably less than 10 years old. This is a child of God that somebody stood beside and watched this happen. So damn you if you are going to be part of this, because I will not let you escape it. I will crucify you first for doing this to the voiceless. To the voiceless. There's something called ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, which basically means all the bad things that can happen to children. I'm a pediatrician and I'm a mom. So I go by the word, the momatrician. Google it. Google me. Google the word momatrician. Sexual assault on children. Emotional assault on children. Physical assault on children. In 1995, between 1995 and 1997, and Dr. Lutz knows this, the CDC, or Center for Disease Control, and Kaiser Permanente did a study on children, or on adults rather, and they asked them what happened when they were children. They checked for those 3 levels of trauma when they were children, and this kind of trauma that happens before the age of 17. And those 17,000 adults that were studied, they found out that all of the ones that were exposed to a certain level of this kind of trauma ended up having a high rate of mental health challenges, of disease, and of course, of suicide. So when Nigeria is scoring 7 on the list of suicides in Africa, and Nigeria is scoring 15 on the list of suicide in the world, I want you to ask yourself, why? Why? Because for years and years, our culture endorses domestic abuse. Our culture endorses parental mental health challenges. Our culture endorses substance abuse. Our culture endorses incarceration for being who you are. Our culture puts people in jail for doing little things, but leaves the politicians to keep doing the big things. Our culture in America encourages racism. Our culture in America looks at divorce as a bad thing. In Nigeria, looks at divorce as the worst thing ever, forgetting that divorce must have been because there was incomplete love being manifested in the marriage. And yes, all of these things are trauma to the child, but the worst kind of trauma a child can experience is bullying. Bullying in the form of verbal. Verbal means yelling. Nigerian children are raised under the umbrella of unequivocal yelling and screaming and shouting and cursing a child that you asked God to give to you. And that's why my third book is called What If My Child is a Bully? Because no child is born wanting to bully another child. Every child was born weighing 6 to 8 pounds and happy and playful. But once upon a time, something bad happened to the child, and then they became bad and became a bully. So I'm going to go through this very quickly because Dr. Luce already went over it. Causes of suicide in adults. Number one is relationship problems, financial problems, health problems. Catastrophic events like death can cause somebody to want to kill themselves. If you've been married for 45 years and your husband dies or your wife dies, you will have thoughts of suicide. 80% of people in the earth have had thoughts of suicide. 80% of people in the earth have had thoughts of suicide. Academic problems, I put an asterisk because in Nigeria specifically, every child must carry first. Every child must be a doctor. Nobody can get 99. We must all get 100. Unrealistic expectations that we're putting on our children. And so Nigerian children, if they get 99, the parent will say, what happened to the one? How dare you not appreciate the 99? And so we put heavy expectations on our kids, and our kids end up wanting to kill themselves. And that's why in Nigeria, college kids, when I say college, I mean university children have the highest rate of suicide, university and young adults, because of these high expectations from the world. Nobody's looking at the little bit that you've given. Everybody wants you to give so much. Family history of secrets. Secrets can kill you. Generational trauma. Your mother was abused, so she abused you. Then you abuse your child. It's called generational trauma. Very, very common in African Americans. If you don't know, look up a paper that I wrote in blackpast.org. I wrote about something called the history of mental illness in African Americans. That particular paper got the History Channel to call me and interview me because of that paper that I wrote on blackpast.org, the history of mental illness in African Americans. Look it up. Sociocultural, racism, marital issues, police brutality, Boko Haram. These are sociocultural issues that our children in Nigeria or in America are looking at every day, wherever in the world, are looking at every day. You cannot marry one wife because one wife is not enough. You marry two wives and then each wife is fighting themselves. What kind of children are born in this kind of environment? You don't take care of your children. You don't take care of your wives. You marry all four wives because you can. Just kind of ancient thought processes that are just okay in Nigeria. Mental illness, of course, depression, all the things that we've talked about now leads you to depression. And what happens when you say that you're depressed? They laugh at you, they jeer at you, they make fun of you, forgetting that you have been traumatized your whole life. And that's why I talked about trauma-informed care, trauma-informed living, trauma-informed humans. We must first be humans. We must first see ourselves as humans, and we'll have no mental health challenges and we'll have no mental anguish. People ask me all the time, Dr. Lulu, what are the signs of suicidality? Well, I say normal behavior in a teenager can be mistaken because teenagers will act this way. Anyhow a teenager acts can be a sign of suicidal behavior. But there's something called is-path-worm. You can take a picture of this. So is-path-worm is a mnemonic that you can use to look at the symptoms of suicide: ideation, substance abuse, purposelessness. We've talked about that a lot today. All of those coaches that spoke earlier on talked about the fact that if you have no purpose in life, you will be suicidal. If a system like Nigeria does not give a future to their young. So they take to the social media and they are vile and abusive. If you look at the Nigerian Twitter, you will just pray and you cry for the kind of pain that these people are in, for what they type, what I call keyboard gangsters. They cannot come in front of you and talk about it. They have no purpose, so they take to the social media. Anxiety. You feel trapped. Nobody that kills themselves is happy-go-lucky. The person that kills themselves feels trapped in a world that they cannot control. Imagine a child that is being sexually molested, that is being sexually abused. Imagine a child that is going through that bullshit that little baby was going through. And yes, I curse because I can. That child is trapped in a house where nobody can save them. In America, that child will kill themselves. And then they say, oh, Dr. Lulu, we had no idea. We didn't see it. We didn't know the signs. Bullshit. The signs are right there in front of you. Hopelessness. Of course, that's what happens to the average Nigerian youth today, because the Nigerian government has not done their part. The Nigerian parents have not done their part. Yes, they get withdrawn. When you see somebody that's being withdrawn and being quiet and being silent, it is not a good thing. You ask them what happened. You do not ask them why. Why is judgmental. Why makes it about you. What happens means you acknowledge that there's trauma. You acknowledge that something is happening to that child. That's what that child is acting with. It's called selective mutism. When a child who used to talk a lot stops talking, it's called selective mutism. It's not by accident that such a child is now silent. You took their words from them by telling them to shut up. That's what Nigerian families do. And one of my brothers mentioned that earlier on. We tell our kids to hush up. When you come into the room, a child should be seen, not heard. What kind of bull crap is that? I learn from my kids every day. I learn from my kids because I talk to my kids. And I'm not even a perfect parent. Don't get me wrong. I've had my own downs. But when you know better, you do better. When you know better, you do better. You act better. You acknowledge better. So those are the symptoms of suicidal behavior. Take a picture of it, if you like. Is path warm. Those are the symptoms. When you see a child that used to be very, very happy before is now quiet, in your mind you say, yes, I've dealt with him. I'm raising them right. But meanwhile, the child is done with you. They've checked out. And so when they jump off the bridge, what do? You make a big announcement on social media. Oh, this person jumped off the bridge. And in children, they start giving away their prized possessions. That is one of the most dangerous things about suicidal behavior in a child. A child loves their sweater, and they start. When my son comes home with somebody's sweater or t-shirt, whatever, I say, I thought you said that was Chad's favorite jacket. Why is he giving it to you? Right away, I go into suicide prevention mode, because a child that's giving away their stuff maybe is done and wants to die. Talking, writing, asking questions about death is not what kids do. When a child is doing that, I need you to pay attention. Remember, a suicide attempt is never a cry for attention. It's always a cry for connection. And if you call it a cry for attention, what attention are you not giving that child? Recklessness in a child is a very high sign of suicidal behavior. Self-harm, cutting themselves. A suicide attempt is the strongest risk factor for suicide death. That's why I put asterisk in that suicide attempt. So I want you to be the one. I want you watching me right now to be the one, to dare to be the one for that child, like I am. If you have to quit your job, quit your job. Because if I had not quit my job as a regular pediatrician, seeing patients every day in the office, I would not be here today. I would not have spoken on, I can't even tell you how many stages I've spoken on, including a TEDx stage, including a United Nations stage, a global Pan-African network stage, if I had not quit my job. So dare to be the one to quit your job. Do what you have to do. Be bold. I like to say VFAB. V means be vulnerable. Reach into yourself and be able to admit to yourself that you're not perfect. And that's why my first slides talked about who you don't see in that picture. I allow myself to be vulnerable. VFAB, F, be fearless. Be fearless in telling your story. Be fearless in being an upstander. When you see something bad happening, say something about it. VFAB, A, be authentic. Be your true self. You're one. There's only one person with your fingerprint or your thumbprint, like one of my brothers said earlier, and with your retina. There's only one of you. So be yourself, because there's nobody that can be bad like you are. You are badass when you're being authentic. Be fab. Be bold. Go out there and do what you got to do. Empower somebody. Make somebody else feel better. Look into their eyes and really see them. Thank God for masks, even though in Nigeria, I just see pictures of people having masks on their chin. Nobody wears a mask in any of the pictures I see in Nigeria. They wear it on their chin as some kind of, I don't know. When you wear a mask, what that does is that blocks everything else and you can see my eyes. And eyes are the window to your soul. And so when you see my eyes, you can ask me, your boy, you don't look okay. Are you all right? Is everything okay? What's happening? And if you ask me the question, you better be ready for the answer. We're going to talk about that in a minute. There is hope, because studies have shown that formerly suicidal teens who can identify one single trusted adult in their life will thrive. Did you know that in the state of Texas, a teenager attempts suicide every 2 hours? So that means in the time we've been on this event, you can tell how many teenagers have attempted suicide. Remember what I told you about a suicide attempt is the strongest risk factors for a suicide death. In my neighborhood, across the street from my house, 2 months ago, the 19-year-old boy put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. My sons knew him. I didn't know him, but now I think I remember the boy. When they try to describe him, I think I remember him. He was a loner. He didn't say anything to anybody. The Saturday morning that he killed himself, his mother was in that house. She thought he went to work. She didn't hear the gun shot. Until at 1 o'clock, it happened around 9 o'clock in the morning, until at 1 o'clock that afternoon when he was supposed to come back from work, she didn't see him. So she called where he works. And then the HEB people say, he never came to work today. Today he's not supposed to work. He had killed himself in the house. Be the one for the kids around you. Make eye contact. Ask the questions. What happened? What is happening? And if you have to, take the child from the environment. There is hope. That tells you that every time a child kills themselves, that child was unable to find one single trusted adult. That is what that tells you if you don't know. Because the studies have shown that that can help a child thrive. So if the child cannot find an adult, that means that that child is going to kill themselves. So I want you to talk to save lives. Talking saves lives. I'm going to break down what I call talk. T means tune in to the right radio frequency of your child. I want you to tune in to the exact radio frequency that that child is in. What social media platform is your child in? I want you to tune in, to be present, to be intentional as a parent. Everything you do for your child must be calculated. I know I have 3 sons. All 3 of them are different. I can tell when something is not right with one of them because I have tuned in to their radio frequency. A is ask the right questions. I dare you to ask what happened. What is happening? Because 9 times out of 10, when a child wants to kill themselves, it's not because the world is being good to them. Like Dr. Luce said earlier on, there are many reasons that one of the studies had said altruistic, fatalistic, all of that is tick, right? There's one of them why that child has chosen that nobody sees me. They feel invisible. I dare you to see the children around you. If you're going to ask the question, do not be afraid to ask the question. You better be ready to listen. So L stands for listen with intention. Close the space, lean in, lead from the heart, and actually truly listen deeply, which is what coaches do. It's all about the client. It's all about listening deeply. And K means keep communication lines wide open as you get them effective help. And when I say effective help, I do not mean medication. Because if a child is being sexually molested, there's no medicine that will treat that. Besides, that is making the child the victim again by putting them on medication. So I dare to say I'm one of the pediatricians in the whole wide world who sees my patients and I do not give them medications. What I do is I truly see my patients. I hang out with them. We actually talk. We have a conversation and they all get better. And I only work with suicidal teenagers. I don't see anybody else. I have a very, very, very narrow niche. Only suicidal teenagers. And what do? I set for them achievable goals every day, tiny little goals that they can achieve. My first thing I tell them to do is call 5 of your friends. Don't text them, call them and ask that person, what can I do to make your day better? And sure enough, by the 4th or 3rd person, my patient is feeling better because they are doing it for somebody else. There's nothing else you're put on this earth to do than to serve. When God created Adam, he said to himself, let's create a helper. I want you to see yourself as a helper. The narrow-minded people who are watching me, and I have no problem saying this, will think that, oh, God created Adam and Eve. Bullshit. God created 2 people. Bottom line, he created you to be somebody else's helper. It's not about marrying a woman or marrying a man. It's about being there for somebody else, being the one to help somebody else. That's what God said. Let us create a helper for this person. When you practice compassion and empathy, which I believe in compassion more than empathy, because empathy means I see you, I feel your pain. Compassion takes it to the next level. How can I help? So I prefer compassion, but both of them are good. But there's no empathy if you're not going to have compassion. So compassion means I see you, I feel you. How can I help you? And that's what God said. He created a helper. The first 2 people he created were man and a woman, yes, to procreate, but also more importantly, to help each other. He created a helper. I want you to be the helper for other people. Be an upstander. When you see something bad happening, say something. How do we get to the happy Nigerian child? Because I'm in a Nigerian environment. But it doesn't matter. How do we get to a happy child? We have to first end the silence and the shame and the stigma around suicide. I put end. Usually I put stop there. It's supposed to be 5 S's. I should have put stop. The silence, shame, and stigma around suicide. Put processes in place to recognize the signs of trauma early. When that baby, that little boy that I put at the beginning, that is not early detection. That boy has been beaten since he was probably a toddler. How dare you do that to the child that was given to you by God to take care of? You start with yourself. I'm not going to start preaching to somebody to do something outside. Always start with yourself. Start with your home. Then go to work where you are. Then locally in your community. Then, of course, before you dare to go globally. So when it comes to yourself, here's my 3 A's of thought control. Brother Dennis said this earlier on. First of all, acknowledge the thoughts. Acknowledge that negative thought telling you that you're not good enough. Acknowledge it, because humans by nature stack thoughts. We don't want to acknowledge it. We push it away. Well, guess what? Eventually it's going to blow up. So acknowledge the thought, but don't let it come in and take it, and don't give it a drink. Just let it I see you. And then analyze that thought for veracity, for truth. Is this really true that I'm not good enough? Bullshit. I am good enough. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am a helper. I am a good neighbor. I am a whatever. You tell yourself that by analysis. And when you analyze for veracity, then you act based on the result of your analysis. And therefore, when you see that you've told yourself, reminded yourself, like Brother Dairo said, when you've reminded yourself of all the good things you've done in the past, now you can act. And now you can challenge that negative thought process telling you that you're not good enough. We must all be responsible towards the word suicide. We must practice compassion. That's my first watchword. We must police ourselves first. You can tell me everything about everybody. If you're not policing yourself first, that is BS in my book. You must advocate for the children around you, because the children are our future. We must recognize suicide contagion. Somebody had asked that, or contagion, if you're potato or potato. Suicide contagion, like Dr. Luce had explained, is when you see it around you and it starts becoming an option for you. I've never seen a group of people like Nigerians who publicize and sensationalize suicide. The very first picture of a man hanging I ever saw in my life was one Mr. Uche Henry. They had a picture of him in his living room. I was traumatized seeing that picture because I have been suicidal myself. Nigerians, please be responsible around suicide. And yes, when you have a suicide cluster, that means you have a higher rate of suicide than is expected for that particular geographic location. That is what a suicide cluster is. Suicide contagion often lead to a suicide cluster. So recognize that and do something about it. Be respectful of the suicided person. And yes, amongst the words that Dr. Luz didn't talk about is that suicide can be a verb. So somebody can actually suicide. So the suicided person, be respectful towards them. So suicide as a verb, as in eating or sleeping, suiciding, suicided, suicide as a verb. I know it sounds weird, but like everything else that is new, when you learn it, it becomes your power. So be respectful of that person and their family members. That is not the time to start judging them. I've already talked about this. All the stereotypical and stigmatizing narratives. Oh, they didn't have enough Jesus. Oh, because they were gay. Oh, because they were not in church enough. Oh, because they were not rich enough. Oh, because of all this bullshit stigmatizing stereotypical thing, because they are black, because they are this. This is all untrue. Somebody who kills themselves is in a lot of what I call psychic pain. I have been there. The reason I was suicidal is because I found myself divorced, raising 3 boys, and all the kind of mago-mago and wuri and negative thought that was words that were coming from the Nigerian camp, from my ex-husband's camp. You can't do this. You will never be successful. You will never be able to raise the boys. Never mind that today, my first son graduated with honors from Stanford University. Never mind that they have a full scholarship in their music performance program at the New England Conservatory. Look it up, 100% scholarship. He's a presidential scholar at the New England Conservatory. Never mind that my second son is a presidential scholar at Texas Tech. He's studying architecture. Never mind that between the two of them play 15 musical instruments. Never mind that they are prodigies in jazz and orchestra. Never mind that my baby son is an A student and a basketballer and a shot caller. Never mind that I pulled that of myself as a mother of 3 boys. But I had all kinds of stereotypical, oh, she's divorced. Oh, now there's something wrong with her. She's broken. This is the narratives that we place on ourselves in Nigeria. Provide helpful resources. So my resources are 1-800-SUICIDE. I don't know if that works in Nigeria. 988 in America, as opposed to 911. We have 988, that's a suicide hotline. You can text help or Steve or home to 741-741. There's this app called the Not Okay app. I don't know if it's present in Nigeria yet. Again, I can only say what I know. The Not Okay app was actually devised by a black boy and his sister when they were 14 and 13 respectively, years old. They were not on the internet cussing out people. They were devising the Not Okay app. It's a free app to download. What that app does is you download it as a parent and you download it in your child's phone, and your child, if they're ever not okay, they will type that not okay, and it will shoot out the child's GPS location, and you can come and get them before they hurt themselves. 911. So that's my website. Is a resource for teenagers, obviously, and that's my phone number if you want to call me. But since you guys are going to have the record. So yes, in summary, I'm done. In summary, we talked about the fact that looks can be deceiving, trauma in children, aka ACEs. We talked about the causes of suicidality in adults, signs of suicidality in adults and children. Talk saves lives, responsible reporting, resources, and of course, my 3 A's. So we must start the conversation. We must stop the silence, the shame, and the stigma. These are my 3 books, and you can find it on Amazon if you want to. And you can join me next Friday. I'll be teaching a class called Parenting Without Yelling, because I know this is what we do. Questions? Follow me on social media. Booyah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Mic drop.
Could I just ask Dr. Lulu a question? I've heard
Yes.
your background, and it's amazing to hear, you know, not great about some of the things that's happened to you, but I'm always interested. I focus on what I call positive deviants, people who have all this adversity and then they come out the other end and they're just not okay, but they're just amazing. And then you're one of those people. And then I guess I'd just like to get some insight around, what gives you that mental toughness? What do you do that makes you, I guess, there's obviously a point where these nasty things have happened and you've been able to get past it. And that's where when I work with people, I try to get into that mindset and really focus on that. Well, talk to me about that, or talk to the audience about that.
And so it's basically daily self-coaching and daily self-talking, and just believing in the power of manifesting the words that you speak. I'm a believer in that. I'm going to tell you a story because I'm also a storyteller. In December, I came to Nigeria. I had about 5 speaking engagements. And so when I was in Lagos at one of the events, a friend of mine took me to a fashion designer to make some clothes. And while I was at the woman's fashion designing studio, I said, ma'am, make me a nice blouse, because I know that, I'm going to wear that outfit for my TEDx talk. And so she asked me, she said, what's a TEDx talk? I said, oh, it's just some kind of fancy talk that you do, but just make sure that the blouse is nice. I spoke that in December. I had no idea what was going to happen. March came, we went on lockdown. And so I asked myself, what's going to be my lockdown legacy? My lockdown legacy. I said to myself, you know what? Why don't I just apply for a TEDx talk? I said, I'm not, not to, of course, be the one that's going to be, beat. I was like, oh, I'm going to apply for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 TEDx talks. Because again, you hear me say I can a lot, because I can. I applied for 4 TEDx talks. You know how many I got? 4. I got 4 invitations to come to do 4 TEDx talks. The first one was last month. And guess what? I wore the blouse that I had projected in December. And when I took the picture, I sent it to the lady, and she was like, oh my gosh, she started crying. I said, that is the power of self-belief, the power of saying, I can, and so I must. We are placed on this earth to be servers. That's all. We're to be servers and helpers. And once you believe that you can help and you can serve others, God will put everything you need in place. Hopefully you will see it. Thank you. I can go on, as you know.
No, it's awesome. I love it. The stuff I talk about, I call it a blue brain experience. So whatever it is that gets you there, it's that focus, right? Where you focus. So when I probably talk more neuroscience when I'm dealing with people, say, and when I listen to people like you know that they've changed their focus, that they go, if I focus on all the crap that happened to me, I'm in what I call a red brain space, right? But you've done something where you go, nah, this is where I need to go. And that's part of the message, that when you, whatever it is that gets you there, whether it's religion, whether it's just a change of your ability to go, you know what, this isn't okay. And what you're saying about even the conversation, and this is where people get stuck. Young kids don't understand that they can change all that. And I love the message. No, I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was going to also mention that generally what you focus on gets bigger. There's a Native American adage that the wolf you feed gets fat.
And thank you so much, Dr. Lulu, for that awesome presentation.